Good morning. We are here today in the matter of Clarence Barnes, 3rd v. Cynthia Seymour, Appeals Court number 2022J727. My name is Marguerite Grant. I'm a Justice of the Appeals Court. And here today, I will hear first from Ms. Seymour. You can go ahead.
Okay. As I understand that this hearing is to determine about waiving the appeal bond, and I did file an affidavit of indigency. I am in a chapter of my life that is surreal. I have lost 13 people, and I'm trying to process all of that simultaneously and unable to work. I am on SNAPs and mass disability, and so anyway, in the matter of this situation, I am a non-rent paying tenant. Mr. Barnes invited me to move into the building on November 3rd, 2020, and our agreement was for me to provide services in his absence here in exchange for living in a tiny bedroom. And I have provided that continually for the past 26 months. Every single thing that can be imagined about taking care of a property other people live in is something that I do. One of the tenants is 18 years old, or was 18 years old when I moved in, and needs a lot of support. There's been a parade of people that have moved in and out since then, about 13 people. And I have been the person on site, the adult on site, to take care of all the matters that have been involved in this. I've known Mr. Barnes for a long time, and I did not understand that when I was invited to move in that he had other intentions as well. And as soon as that became clear and that wasn't going to work out in a positive way, I started getting harassed. And he put a tenant into the building specifically to spy on us and harass me and try to drive me out. And that person attacked one other tenant and then attacked me. He was arrested for assault and battery. And when I had to call the police in those matters, Mr. Barnes told me that's why he began to evict me, because I called the police. I have represented him in meetings with the town officials. Mr. Barnes is 80 years old. He has significant health problems. He has some cognitive issues, and I have been his de facto representative, all security, everything here. And I have not been paid a cent. And I never agreed to pay any money. We never had that agreement. So when the non-payment for rent lawsuit began, my focus was on the fact I don't pay rent, and I don't. However, if I did pay rent, there are so many different defenses, violations here, that would take more than 15 minutes in itself.
Well, I have a question for you about that. So you had a trial before Judge Michaud back, I think, in July.
Yes.
And at that trial, as I understand from his findings and rulings, you argued that you were a barter tenant who did not have to pay rent.
That's right.
And he found, based on that trial, that based on an email from the landlord, that the $700 was designated as rent, and therefore 8 months was past due, totaling $5,600. Why was the judge wrong when he said that?
Because I'd already been living here for a year as a non-paying tenant, and that was the terms of our tenancy. If Mr. Barnes wanted to evict me, he needed to evict me as a non-paying tenant that I was, to suddenly send me an email completely undiscussed and unagreed to, with a 16-day deadline, I believe it was, to pay some arbitrary amount. People in this building, this is a totally illegal building. There's no certificate of occupancy. It's all cash off the books. no one pays a security deposit or first and last or any of that. It's not that kind of a situation. The town that it's in, the officials are suing him for zoning violations. They tried to evacuate the building on January 8th, 2020. They did actually evacuate a lot of the building. Anyway, my point there is that I had already done a year of work. The agreement was already a year in place, and I didn't agree to any new agreement. And he just sent me an email out of the blue. And it's, you know, you have to evict someone based on the tenancy they have, not just create some new thing and start with that. So anyway,
I have another question.
Yeah.
So in November, on November 8th, Judge Michaud entered the order about the appeal bond. And then, and then subsequent to that, on November 17th, you filed something that's called, it's on a form that says answer form, Commonwealth of Massachusetts Trial Court, but handwritten at the top is defenses for review of orders relating to appeal bond, 11/17/22. And there's a bunch of, in addition to the boxes about being a work for rent barter tenant, there's a lot of boxes checked about some of your other arguments. Were those arguments raised either at trial in July or before Judge Michaud in November?
I included those, a lot of those conditions in my original summary process answer last February. And then the case was transferred to Southeast Housing Court. And so my legal counsel told me that that because they were pursuing a non-payment for rent case, I should just focus on that. And because I'm not a rent-paying tenant, it was sort of very clear. So that was my focus at the trial, is that the thing they're suing me for is nothing that I do, and so I didn't bring in all of the detail. But then when the judge made his decision, the lawyer told me that I should bring in all the rest of the detail, and it matches the summary process answer. I mean, there's a lot wrong here. I'm just trying to keep a roof over my head. I do not have another place to live at this time. I'm trying to process a situation that's unbelievable, and I've just tried to make this work for everybody. And suddenly now I'm in a position where I've provided thousands of hours of unpaid services. And now I'm in a position where I'm being sued for something I never agreed to be part of. So it's a very strange situation. But as I say, even if I were a rent-paying tenant, the amount of violations included in this tenancy are significant. And so, there was frankly a murder threat on May 27th by Mr. Barnes. If you look at the pamphlet of what the landlord's responsibilities and rights are, pretty much everything is a violation. I can prove every single thing I checked on those documents. I have photographs, I have written documents. I've tried to resolve them. That's what I do every day. I try to resolve all these things so that the people that are living here can live here in some way. So I'm trying to get out of here as fast as possible. But at this time, it's been really difficult. And all of this extra legal activity has made it even more difficult. So on top of everything else, the room that I live in is essentially the size of a closet. And the rooms in this building, this commercial building, are all very different sizes. So to just arbitrarily come up with this figure when other people here live in rooms 2 to 3 times the size of my, I mean, the whole thing is just crazy, Your Honor. It's nothing I agreed to, and I don't understand how I can be sued for something I didn't agree to. You know, that's not, I was here for a year, and, you know, I have made this work for this landlord, and he's made $50,000 as a result of my efforts, and he is never here. He's never here. And the other person who's living here at this time also has cognitive issues. So I'm making sure that burners are turned off and faucets are turned off and heat is turned on and all sorts of things every day, most of the day. So ironically, it's sort of the timing of this kind of work for me, because I didn't anticipate all of these deaths in my life. And this is something I can manage, but to be fully employed at this time is a little more than I can do right now, which I'm trying to get on with my life. That matters more to me than it matters to anyone else. But it's a very difficult situation, and this has really made it more difficult. So, I mean, today is the anniversary of my father's death, and this is what we're doing. So. It's been confusing because I tried to defend myself in a matter that didn't relate to anything that was true. And there's a backstory for all of this stuff that I thought at the time wouldn't be necessary or relevant, but actually is. And also the matter of filing for those draft applications on April 15th and June 30th. I have proof of that. I filed that. And Mr. Barnes just wouldn't participate. He just ignored all that too. So, you know, I don't know what to say at this point. The housing clerk people told me that they thought that I should file for those draft applications. And I did it, and then he wouldn't do it. And, you know, he told me I was being evicted because I called the police. He threatened to murder me. I mean, you know, I've got like pages of violations. And on top of everything else, I've never been a rent-paying tenant, ever. So, you know, I don't owe this man money. I mean, if I actually took him to court, he owes me money. I have provided services in greater value than the rent he's claiming that I owe. You know, there's articles in the public newspaper about all of this stuff that goes on in this building. This is a bit of a crime scene. You know, I don't know how to word it any other way. There's a lot here. So I've just tried to stay basic to the facts that they sued me for non-payment and I'm not a rent-paying tenant. And then beyond that, you know, there's a lot of violations that would protect me anyway from paying rent, because this is not a habitable situation. So.
Thank you. I appreciate your arguments.
Okay.
Attorney Stolinger?
Yes, good morning, Your Honor.
Let me make sure the clerk resets the time.
Okay,
Hold on 1 second.
there you
go. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to appear today, and for continuing the case for a couple of days because of my schedule. Mr. Barnes, first of all, he wanted to be here today. I did contact him when the initial hearing was scheduled. I told him about it. I gave him the Zoom ID and everything else. I've tried to call him today, and I haven't been able to get through to him. Again, he did want to be here today. He does have significant health issues, so that could be the issue. To address what we've just heard is what we heard is astounding, much of it a fiction. Just before the trial, the original trial date in Edgartown, Mr. Barnes filed a complaint against Ms. Seymour for harassment. It was heard by Judge Barnes, no relation, and Judge Barnes issued.
Is this a district court complaint?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I really want to stick to the house court issue.
Okay, but this relates to what you've just heard, because the judge made a decision and issued an order telling Miss Seymour that she should never, for a period of time, which now has elapsed, she should never tell anybody that she's an employee of Mr. Barnes, because Mr. Barnes testified there that she is not and never has been an employee.
That's
So,
not true.
I have some questions for you. I want to try to keep this on track.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
true.
But it was, Ms. Seymour, you had your 15 minutes and
Sorry.
Attorney
Sorry.
Saunders 15 minutes. I want to try to keep this on track with what it was that Judge Michaud found, both in July after trial and in November after the appeal bond hearing. So my questions for you are, on what did the judge base that $700 a month rent figure?
on the email that my client had sent to her in November, stating that he was now going to charge rent to her. He was initially giving her a hand because she had just been evicted from another place. And so he was trying to help out. He helps a lot of people out. So he was giving her a place to help her get on her feet. It became troublesome to him because she was doing certain things within the property which were detrimental to the property. So he asked her to start paying rent. And she never, to this day, has not responded to that email. So she ignored the email, and we filed the summary process complaint.
So what do you say in response to Ms. Seymour's argument that she's being sued for something she didn't agree to?
She had an obligation to Mr. Barnes to pay this rent because he's the landlord and he established a rent, and he gave her a time period to make those payments, and she didn't do it.
So Judge Michaud, in his appeal bond order in early November, he found, as I understand it, that Ms. Seymour had shown that she's indigent for the purposes of the appeal bond. Is there any issue about that finding?
Well, the only issue is she chooses not to be employed. It's not a question of whether, you know, she's employed or not. Yeah. So in that case, she's indigent in the fact that she doesn't have income, but that's a choice that she's making.
But for my purposes in reviewing Judge Michaud's appeal bond order, I really need to focus on the second prong as to whether or not Ms. Seymour has shown a meritorious issue on appeal. Is that right?
Right, and I don't think that she has, not at all. She's obligated to pay rent. She didn't pay rent. Simple as that.
Were you present at the trial in July and at the appeal bond hearing?
Yes, I was.
Now, do you see, I had asked her about this form that was filed apparently in November, and it's an answer form with a lot of boxes checked and a lot of information about defenses and retaliation and things. Now, were those issues raised at the trial in July or the appeal bond hearing in November, or was the thrust of Ms. Seymour's defense that she was a non-rent paying barter tenant?
It's all been raised at every hearing throughout the whole case.
What's all been raised?
Every issue that she raised today, and every issue that you see on those documents in front of you, she always says that the place is uninhabitable, and it's the police are always there, and the town is after Mr. Barnes. It's all a fabrication. Okay.
But so I'm just trying to keep my eye on the ball here. As I understand it, Judge Michaud ruled that he did not see a meritorious issue for appeal, and he set the rent at $700 and the appeal bond at $5,600 with use and occupancy going forward at $700 a month.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt and take up all of your time. I don't have any other questions for you. If there's anything else you want to tell me, you have another however many minutes.
No, I think that's it, Your Honor. I just, again, she was given the opportunity to have a tenancy, and she just didn't respond, simply didn't respond. And that's why we're here today.
And it's her position that she didn't agree to it, so she can't be sued.
Right.
Exactly.
I understand both positions. Thank you both. And with that, the hearing will conclude. Mr. Conley? So the recording has stopped, and have a good day, and thank you for participating. So I'm going to leave.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank
Bye.
you.